Hello, and welcome to another episode of the High Danger Hockey Podcast. My name is Emma Miller, and today we're going to be talking about Game 5 between the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers, but even more so, we're going to be focusing on what each of these teams needs to do going forward. The Panthers have a chance to win the Stanley Cup in Game 6, but the Oilers also have the opportunity to force a Game 7 just like they did in last year's Stanley Cup final. So we're going to go ahead, look at what each of these teams has got to do going forward if they want to accomplish their goals. So we're going to talk all of that and lots more in this episode. Let's get right into it. This whole series, I've been talking about how wonderful and high quality the hockey is that we're getting to see. And unfortunately, Game 5 was not nearly as exciting as some of the previous games in this series because it was all Panthers the whole time. Florida really brought a dominant game to the ice like they have been, and the Oilers had very few answers for it this time around. Each of the Oilers' wins has been in overtime. They've had to grind it out a lot. And the Panthers didn't give them an opportunity to do that yesterday. So we're going to go ahead, take a look at what the Panthers did right and what they need to continue doing right in Game 6 to win a second consecutive Stanley Cup championship. But first, we got a little visitor here today, and it's my cat, Dunkin' Donut, aka Didi. And she apparently thinks it's acceptable to be in my way right now. So if she meows or causes chaos like she normally does, I will do my best to edit it out. And if you are watching us on YouTube or the visual version, here's a little look at my girl. Hello, Didi. So now that that distraction is over with for now, we're going to go ahead and actually talk about what the Panthers did right in this Game 5. And the answer to that is pretty much everything. Their possession continued to be really strong. Every single game, the Florida Panthers have recorded a higher Corsi for than the Edmonton Oilers, and last night their Corsi for was over 55%. So they're really commanding control of the puck and really being very clean with their puck possession. And something that was abundantly clear in this Game 5, and it really has been quite obvious throughout the series, is how precise the Panthers are. Their passes are clean, they're right on the tape, they play a very calculated style of game, and they're also very efficient, once again, at jumping on loose pucks, winning battles, forcing turnovers from the Edmonton Oilers. And that is something the Oilers are doing wrong, is I feel like they're trying a little bit too hard at times. They're looking for the plays that the Panthers are able to pull off, like those long reach passes and stuff, but Florida is able to intercept those so much better than Edmonton is on the other side. So this strategy is working really well for the Panthers, and Edmonton is trying to do something similar, but they're not nearly as precise. And they just missed the mark a little bit. Florida has also been really strong off the faceoff, and that has been a key component of their goals, especially in Game 5 there. Both of Brad Marchand's goals were off of very nice face-off wins. He was able to grab possession right away, or the Panthers were able to get possession of the puck right off the face-off. And especially on that first goal, Marchand was able to just walk the puck in all by himself and very easily beat Cal Pickard. So the Panthers are strong off the face-offs. They shield the puck really well when they're carrying it. They're very calculated. They're very good at hitting the tape on those long passes. And their breakout game is very strong. Zone entries are hard to deny. And last night in particular, in Game 5, they really were skating circles around Edmonton at times. And of course, I'd be remiss not to mention how good Florida is out of the gates. They have outscored Edmonton 11-4 in the first period through the first 5 games. That includes a 3-0 lead in Game 4, a 2-0 lead in Game 5. And in the second period, the Oilers did attempt to do what they do best, and that's come from behind and really rally when they're already trailing, because once again, they've had 6 of their 14 wins when the other team is scoring first, and Game 5 just was not one of those cases, as the Panthers won 5-2. But Edmonton really did try to surge in that second period. They held the Panthers to just one shot in the first 10 minutes of that period. So the Panthers were just better in pretty much every regard in this Game 5. The power play was more efficient. They carried and protected the puck significantly better than the Oilers did, and goaltending was significantly better. And Sergei Bobrovsky, for most of the game, faced a lower shot volume than usual. Usually the Oilers are able to throw a lot more pucks on net, and they were not able to do that in Game 5. Meanwhile, Calvin Pickard, in his first start in over a month, did not perform as well as the Oilers would hope. However, I don't think that this loss was his fault alone. We saw some really beautiful goals from the Panthers. We saw some real dangles and snipes from Florida. So could Pickard's positioning have been better at times? Yes, it definitely could have. I think part of his issue is he sometimes overcommits to the play and he puts himself in a less favorable position to make the next save. But I don't think that all 5 of those goals were entirely his fault. And I think the team let up a lot of chances that they really shouldn't have. The Oilers once again had a lot of giveaways and a lot of turnovers, and this Panther squad is so good at taking advantage of those misplays by the Oilers. So looking ahead, who do the Oilers start for Game 6? Is it going to be Calvin Pickard? Are you going to give him another chance to prove himself? Because after all, Game 5 was his first loss in this entire playoffs. He has a record of 7-1, and he actually has better stats on paper than Stuart Skinner does, even though Skinner was the go-to guy for a good chunk there for the last month of the playoffs. It was all Skinner. And Edmonton's coach Chris Knoblauch was very wishy-washy on who he was going to start in Game 6. He didn't give a definitive answer quite yet, so that's something we probably won't find out until Tuesday at this point. I think there are logical reasons on both ends of things to start either Skinner or Pickard. And in Pickard's favor, I think, again, a lot of the goals he has allowed in these last couple of games, in his last few appearances, were not because of technical difficulties on his end of things. It was more the sloppy play of the Edmonton skaters in front of him and the phenomenal skill and precision of the Florida Panthers shooters. You're coming out of a big blowout loss, a 5-2 defeat at the hands of Florida. So is it worth switching up the energy and giving Skinner another chance to earn back the net? I know I've talked about this at length in previous episodes. They've really gone back and forth between these two guys, where Skinner entered the playoffs as the starter, Pickard stole the net from him, and then he got injured, so they have to go back to Skinner. And he's the one that runs away with it for the next month, just until Game 3 when he was pulled and Pickard came in relief. So do they try to swing momentum once again, give Skinner another chance to run away with it like he has in the past? But Pickard has both better statistics and a better wins percentage. So what do? I mean, I don't envy Chris Knoblauch right now having to make this decision going into Game 6. There's a lot on the line. There's a Stanley Cup on the line. So not only is there this whole goaltending conundrum, but the Oilers really need to be more disciplined in this next game if they have any chance at winning. They not only need to come out stronger defensively in the first period, because now we all know how good the Panthers can be when they're given the chance to take an early lead. So Edmonton has got to be more aggressive offensively early on while also being able to get back. And I think once again, that all starts in going back to the basics. Let's not try to replicate what Florida's doing. Let's not make that extra pass. Let's throw pucks on net. Even if they're medium to low quality shots, just get something in the direction of the goal crease, because we saw it on the overtime winner by Leon Draisaitl in Game 4. He had one hand on the stick and just kind of knocked it in past Bobrovsky on a shot that was not particularly beautiful or high quality, but nevertheless, it was a game winner in overtime, and it tied the series, and it was huge. So they need more of that. Just start taking more shots and focus on peppering Bobrovsky as much as possible. And something else they need to do in increasing the shot volume is target those areas where Bobrovsky is weaker, because right now he is allowing most of his goals in the upper corners and right under that crossbar. Bobrovsky is very flexible, very acrobatic, and he's got a very strong 5-hole. He's very comfortable going down in that butterfly position, and he plays extremely well when shots are, middle to low end of the net. So elevate that puck, pick that top corner. We saw Darnell Nurse do it. We saw Ryan Nugent-Hopkins do it. We saw Leon Draisaitl with 2 beautiful, basically open net goals in game 1. So just throw whatever you can at Bobrovsky, make him tired, and then pick out those areas where you know he has faltered a little bit during this series. Because again, throughout the Stanley Cup final, I think he's only allowed 1 goal via 5-hole. And on Florida's side of things, don't change a thing. Hit the ground running. Basically, just play, keep away. Don't give the Oilers the chance to improve these things that I've mentioned. Don't allow them to continue to throw shots at Sergei Bobrovsky. Instead, just really do what you've been doing. Shield the puck. Protect it well. Continue to get more shot attempts and continue to control possession. That's really what this is going to come down to. The Panthers just have to stick to their game plan because to this point, it has worked phenomenally well. And if Florida is able to stick to what has worked best for them, there's a very good chance that they pull off the win in Game 6. Although I would love to see a Game 7. It's going to take a really gutsy effort from the Oilers. They really need that depth to come in strong because there's not enough offense coming from guys outside of the top 6. They need more goals from defensemen. They need more contributions from guys lower in the lineup, like a Kasperi Kapanen type or a Vasily Podkolzin or even Connor Brown. It is going to take a full team effort to beat the Florida Panthers because that's an area that Florida is so strong in, is they get that offense from up and down the lineup, forwards, defensemen, you name it. And if the history books are any indication, the Panthers really do have a good chance of closing this out in Game 6 at home. Throughout NHL history, the reigning Stanley Cup champion, when they're in a position to clinch a second consecutive Stanley Cup, those teams have a record of 27-10 all time. But it is worth noting that Florida has really defined themselves as being a very strong road team. Sergei Bobrovsky has tied the record for most wins on the road by a single goaltender in a playoff run. He has 10 wins this season when they're not playing in Florida, and that ties Jordan Binnington for the all-time NHL record. And of course, Sam Bennett continues to lengthen his NHL record of the most goals on the road, but playing on home ice in front of home fans, knowing the Stanley Cup is in the building, acknowledging that the Oilers battled back, forced a Game 7 last year, the Oilers have an opportunity to do that again. We might really see Florida lock it down and play their best game of the playoffs so far in this Game 6, just motivated by that home crowd energy and the knowledge that we got to do this tonight, because if we send this back to Edmonton and it's a all or nothing Game 7, it can go either way. It really can. So the Panthers have to take advantage of the situation they're in, and they have to take advantage of the fact that they have the opportunity to clinch. Because listen, if you give Edmonton an inch, they could make a mile out of it. We've seen it in all of the comeback wins they've recorded this postseason. I talk about that at length in my last episode if you're interested in hearing more about how good Edmonton is when they're battling from behind. And I was actually a guest on my buddy DJ's podcast alongside one of my fellow coworkers from Fansided, Tyler. And the three of us really took an in-depth look at this series and what needs to happen going forward. So I highly recommend you check out DJ Sports Show. I will leave the link in the description if you're watching on YouTube. You can find that podcast on all streaming platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. I still really want this series to go to 7 games, and I hope the Oilers grind it out, and I think they really can. But they're gonna have to exploit the Panthers' weaknesses, which there aren't many of. So they'll have to go back to the drawing board, go back to the basics, play sound technical hockey, and that's what's gonna set them up for success. And we all know Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl carried the team offensively. McDavid finally lit the lamp himself in Game 5, but he's got a ton of assists in this Stanley Cup final. And Leon Draisaitl continues to dominate the offensive production for Edmonton. So the Oilers really need other guys in the lineup to be stepping up, and if they do, that could be a difference maker for Edmonton. So they still can grind out another win to force a Game 7. I do think that's possible. But I also think it's equally possible that the Panthers know what's at stake and they put on a show in Game 6 in front of their home crowd. So stay tuned for plenty more content about this Stanley Cup final, and headed into the offseason, I'm going to have lots of episodes about free agency, who's on the trade block, you name it, we'll have it. Thank you so much for listening today. Really appreciate your time as always. If you're interested in staying connected with High Danger Hockey, you can find us on TikTok at High Danger Hockey, or you can follow us on X at High Danger Pod. You can watch our videos on YouTube or listen to the audio version on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Once again, I'm your host, Emma Miller, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.